Well, we are going to start with the memo that Ben mentioned. It was issued by your CEO in April, about 4 months ago, and it called for Duolingo to become, quote, AI first. And in it, your CEO wrote that Duolingo would stop using contractors to do work that AI could handle, and headcount would only be given if a team could not automate more of their work. So just a quick summary. And the memo, it was controversial because of its perceived stance on favoring AI instead of humans, and you've since faced backlash from customers who question whether there might be layoffs at Duolingo and if a company focused on teaching people languages could function with fewer people on board. So let's start there. What happened? What do you think went wrong?
Well, okay, let me take a step back. So Duolingo, green owl with a streak. That's our company, that's our app. Our mission is to provide the best education and make it universally available. Okay, that's the mission. Has been the mission since day one. We started with languages because it's one of the few subjects that people learn both inside and outside of schools. And we didn't want to deal with schools from day one. So that's why I started with languages. That's the mission of the company. Okay. Now, when we saw the AI revolution with GPT-4, we saw this is a massive, massive opportunity for us. Okay, and let me explain why. So, if you want to learn anything, whether it's chess, golf, languages, math, music, the single best way to learn is with a one-on-one human tutor. Okay, if we all had infinite resources, that's how we would learn. And that's, in fact, how people used to learn in the past when they had infinite resources, like kings and royalty. They would hire personal one-on-one tutor for their kids. Okay? And the reason we don't have that is because it's so expensive. Okay? And now, for the first time, with AI, we believe we can achieve our mission. Because AI could allow us to teach as well as a one-on-one tutor, but at the cost of AI, which is much, 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 much lower than a human tutor. So that's the main reason why we wrote the memo, and we see this as a massive, massive opportunity to teach better, and everything else followed from that.
Well, when you think about the backlash that you faced, were there any learning lessons in terms of what you would have done differently had you known that perhaps your users and the rest of the tech community would react in a sort of negative way?
I think that's a good question. I would say I wish we had focused more on how this helps achieve our mission and how this is good for the learner. And I think that's what was missing a little bit. And we have to deliver on that promise that I just mentioned before. Can we build this super amazing AI tutor that can teach you anything in much shorter amount of time? And I think if you had focus on that, how this helps the user and how this helps the learner, then I think we probably would have avoided a lot of the backlash.
So let's talk about AI first. Can you sort of define what that means, especially as a founder and as a CTO operator? It's something that we talked about earlier this morning, but it still feels kind of fuzzy. In practice and in reality, what does it really mean?
Yeah, so to me, again, the big question is, like, how can you use AI to teach better? That's, to me, and I think a lot of people ask, how can we use AI to be more productive, or everybody should use ChatGPT and AI note takers, etc. I think that's all good and fine, and we obviously do that as well at Duolingo. We use Cursor and AI for development, software engineering, etc. I'm very close to that, but I think you're missing the point if you don't use AI to build new products. Like, what can you build now that you previously couldn't build? So just to give you an analogy, when mobile happened, at first, every restaurant, every website built a mobile app, okay? And that was not mobile first, really. It was just like, oh yeah, now we have a companion app for our service or product or whatever. But then, at some point, we had Uber. And Uber was something that you couldn't have built before the smartphone. And I think that's what I'm interested in, and I think that's what your companies should think about. Is like, what is the Uber? What is the product that you couldn't have built before AI? And that's the main focus. That's what I'm passionate about. Oops.
How are you actually putting that into practice? Are there new AI features that your users have latched onto? How are you actually building AI into Duolingo?
Yes. So we have this. The feature we're most proud of or most excited about is this feature called Video Call with Lily. So if you have used Duolingo in the major languages, we have this feature, Video Call with Lily. Lily is the girl with the purple hair, and you can talk to her. And the vision there is to make her the best possible conversation partner. So as part of learning a language, you have to practice conversation. And that's the vision of this Video Call with Lily. And it's, again, a feature that we couldn't have built before AI. We actually tried, and it didn't work. But now you can actually build it. And we see tremendous uptake on that feature. It's going really well. Very happy with this.
What about inside the company? You mentioned that you're using AI coding tools for your engineering team. You oversee the engineering team. Is adoption of AI tools something that was a challenge? I mean, especially outside of engineering. I know that's your focus, but you want AI to be adopted wall to wall, right? How do you actually get your employees to start using it?
Yeah, so great question. So about 6 months ago, we actually looked at how much of the code is written by AI, how many people use Cursor or GitHub Copilot, and we were a little bit disappointed because why is not everyone using this? Why adoption should be 100%? It's so good at certain things, and then that also kind of was a trigger for the AI memo. It's like we need people to use these tools, and there's basically two things with it. We measured adoption of the tools, and the second thing is we gave people time. We call it AI Fridays or FRAI days. Fray days, I don't know. So they gave them time to actually explore and try these tools. And that now adoption is 100%. So including MCP, everyone has done MCP, everyone uses Cursor. Everything that we care about, adoption is now 100%.
So was it really as simple as just setting a Friday aside and your employees would start using AI? What do you think is the sort of underlying driving force to reach that 100%?
Yeah, so I think the time really mattered. So we're still a relatively lean company, and people always have something more important, the OKRs and et cetera. So we needed to give people time, and we believe our engineers are smart people. We trust them. So if you give them time, they will naturally explore these tools. And that was one of the reasons why they haven't tried them, because they didn't have time, or they didn't see the immediate benefit. So giving time definitely helped. And then we also did have a few sessions where we explored MCP. I was in one of them. Some of these were mandatory, and those together really helped.
So to what extent do you make other aspects of AI mandatory? I know that when we were chatting before this, you talked about performance reviews, and that was an area where you considered making AI mandatory. Where do you find that line between you have to use it versus you're encouraged to use it?
Yeah, so, okay. We do want to have high adoption rate. We actually care even more about people trying out all the AI tools, because you can go to the other extreme where people end up using AI for AI's sake, and that's not what you want. Then you end up actually with a lot of AI slop, and you don't want that. You want a reasonable person to decide when it's best to use AI and when it's best to use something else. And yeah, so that's kind of I think performance review is a tricky thing. I think we would see a lot of people use AI for AI's sake, and so we're not doing that. However, trying all the different AI tools, that makes a difference, because then you realize, okay, well, if I can do this, if I use MCP for this, or I can maybe fine-tune a model, when to use fine-tuning, when not to use fine-tuning, that actually helps you do a better job in engineering, at least.
Okay. A lot of the questions around AI that I think folks in the room are wrestling with is how to get ROI out of AI and how to measure productivity as a sort of general, again, fuzzy term. How do you actually measure that your employees are more productive? Will they tell you if they're being more productive? How have you tackled that part of the question at Duolingo?
Does anyone know how to measure productivity of a software engineer? Like, does anyone have like, this is the metric you need to measure? So we struggle with this as well. So you can what we've learned, or what I've learned, is everything you can measure is kind of a proxy, but not the real thing. And anything you actually care about, you can measure. So you can measure number of pull requests, and number of lines written by AI, or number of lines written in general. At Duolingo, we are very experiment-driven, so everything that goes into the app is an A/B experiment. So we can measure the velocity of these experiments, number of experiments. But all of these are proxy and not the real thing. So then we're like, okay, well, maybe we can't measure it directly. But then the question is, like, okay, maybe we can ask our engineers, what if you turn off cursor for a week? Or would you miss it? And everyone's like, yeah, we can't work without this anymore. So clearly it's doing something, and it's anecdotally helps with productivity. But I think there's a lot of caveats in there. One, for example, is that coding is rarely the bottleneck. So when you see, okay, now 30% or 40% of the code is written by AI, you would expect, a naive person would expect a 30% improvement in productivity. But if you actually dig a little bit deeper, you realize that only about 20% of a software engineer's time is spent writing code. So if you make that 30% faster, then you don't get a 30% boost, you get something much smaller. Yeah.
So how are you thinking about pushing the boundaries on that? You're clearly thinking about, in a very quantitative way, how to measure productivity. Do you think we'll ever get to a measure that is robust enough to account for human productivity?
Only at the higher level. So for us, it would be number of experiments launched, or kind of like an outcome metric. But I don't think you will be able to it's like, okay, this this feature led to more code. Like, all of these are vanity metrics, I think. But at the outcome level, you can probably tell. But then again, you don't have a controlled experiment, right? So you don't have two companies where one you use Cursor, one you use GitHub Copilot, or one you use AI and one you don't use AI. You don't have that A/B experiment, controlled experiment in a business environment.
Let's go back to, in the few minutes we have left, the product side, and how you're thinking about rolling out new AI features. You talked about Lily as an example of something that's going really well on the product side in terms of AI, but also in a similar vein, how do you push the boundary in terms of, you talked about back in the day, kings and queens could have their own personal tutor. Is the idea that Duolingo becomes the ChatGPT AI tutor that pushes even further into what people can learn? How do you continue to evolve how the product works?
Yeah, I think that's a big question. So I think there's people say, okay, AI is gonna it's gonna replace humans, et cetera, et cetera, and that's obviously a negative. And I actually don't think that's going to happen, or not nearly as fast as people think. But on the positive side, AI is also really good at teaching you things. So I think we could get into a world where, if you guys remember Matrix, maybe I'm dating myself, but there they basically just download the jiu-jitsu or whatever they were fighting into the brain. So it's like instantly, 10 seconds, now you know the skill. Now you know languages. So I think that's probably a little bit far out in the future, but it's never been more realistic. for Duolingo right now, really the focus is on teaching better, teaching more. So we have been able to expand our courses by a lot. So we launched over 100 courses in this year, and this is thanks to AI. Previously, it would have taken us tens or maybe even 100 years if not for AI. So.
Okay, great. Love to take some questions from the audience here, and I know that if Nima is here, love to take a question from her. Oh.
Hi, Nima Uttapa, Global CIO for Oliver Wyman, Marsh McLennan. Severin, I've been a long time a Duolingo user, and one of the things I always wished in the past is a live companion, to be perfectly honest with you. And hearing you speak just now, and the Lily, and AI first strategy and everything, my question is, when I look back at history, not very long ago, which is Apple Siri, which was launched 15 years ago, right? What I know is the daily usage for Siri has been only 1/3 of their population, user population, which is 1.5 billion translated to maybe, 300 million, right? And what I know is Duolingo has paid subscriber base of 11 million at the moment. And so where do you see this AI taking off for you and becoming that 100%? And why are you so confident about that adoption?
Well, okay, that's a great question. So I mean, this is our job. This is our job. We need to build the product that teaches you the fastest, the most efficient way, but also the most engaging way, by the way. That's one thing that is very important to Duolingo. The reason, number one reason why people fail learning languages is because they give up. So, and we don't have the luxury of a school environment, which is a kind of a forced environment where you have to go and otherwise you fail and bad things happen. In Duolingo, we both have to teach you and also motivate you. And we're very good at motivation. So I think if we can build the feature or the product that teaches you 10 times better, I absolutely believe people will use that thing. I mean, people don't want to waste time. And I believe that, and I believe we can do it now with AI. If you had asked me 5 years ago, it would have been a dream maybe, or something that maybe was possible in the long-term future. But today, I believe we can build this in the next couple of years.
Okay, great. And do we have Vivek here?
Thanks, Vivek Sagi, CTO for Mumble. So one of the things when you put an AI-first strategy is basically saying you're not happy with the pace of innovation, right? So then on the flip side of that, how do you deal with the people who could not or would not want to make that transition? How much time do you invest in them before you say, hey, I'm trying to set a culture change, and it might be time to move on?
Yeah, well, so I think we always start from a place where people want to adopt these tools, and we just there's usually a reason why they don't want, why they don't adopt, but it's usually not because they don't want to adopt. I mean, most people want to, like the people we hire at Duolingo, they want to be at the forefront of technology. They want to use the latest technology, and the bottleneck or the hurdle is usually not that they don't want to. I think it's that they don't have the time, or maybe they're a little bit afraid, or maybe they they don't want others to adopt it, or maybe there's an environmental concern, etc. And I think you have to just address these things. And the single biggest reason why we didn't see adoption at Duolingo is because people didn't feel they had time to try these things. Sorry, I'm maybe not the best answer.
No, that's fine. But I mean, even if you give people time, right? I mean, you got to somehow unlock it. And the frustration that stemmed from, hey, the company is not moving fast enough. Not everybody is going to be able to make the jump, right? So I guess you got to invest in time. You got to give people time, invest in people, but not all of them can make that transition.
Well, okay. I mean, at Duolingo, we, this has not been a problem. And I actually know, to that point, one thing that there is, people now shy away from hiring junior level employees, and we don't. And we have a very strong belief that the generation that is coming out of school or college right now, they are the first AI first generation. They have been using all these tools for 3+ years, and it's actually you want to hire more of these people, and we're hiring more of these people, and you don't have to overcome this challenge of like, oh, this is threatening or